I said, pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. You the one I wanna call up. I said, pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. Hey, yeah, sippin' on the double, got me mixing up the trouble. Girl, it's for us. Why you got me singing on the chorus? Yeah, it's only 8 o'clock, the shit'll warm up. Still be yelling, welcome to the come up. She'll be chasing money till the sun's up. Sniffing on the ground. If you ain't got no Benjis, you ain't got a chance. Dropping when she dance, toss you like a glance. Tossing up her hands, got you in a trance. The pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. You the one I wanna call up. I said, pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. You the one I wanna call up. Yeah, call up for the night show. Got the nice flow. Girl, you know I never set a size low. Yeah, we don't need a plan, we'll see where life goes. Yeah, we've been catching feelings, hard to fight those. Yeah, hey, I remember when I could not do like any wrong. Yelling fuck the people that won't let you on. Yelling fuck the bitches that'll let you on. You said, boy, you deserve a better one. Demons coming at me, but I never run. Pressure on my shoulders and it weigh a ton. In my heart of hearts, I think it's you're the one. Till that day comes, I said, pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. You the one I wanna call up. I said, pretty little mama, you really got me torn up. Make a youngin' wanna pour up. You the one I wanna call up.
All right. Hello, guys. We are Freddy and Andressa, and this is your Methodology Monday. Welcome back for one more live video.
Welcome. We hope you guys had a lovely Christmas if you celebrated Christmas and that you're having a very good end of the year. It's 2020. It's almost over. We're almost through and we got this.
Oh, yeah.
So, guys, today we are going to talk a little bit more about technique than the previous days. We had a little bit more of a subjective talk for the previous two lives, and today we are gonna be a little bit more objective with technique, and a technique that we work a lot in our methodology. That is very important to build our methodology from the ground, from the scratch, right? Right from the start, it's something that we already introduced to our students. And it's this suspension and landing technique. It's actually the suspensions and landings are one of the most, I would say, one of the main characteristics of Brazilian Zouk Dance, the real style, the traditional style, right? Or whatever you want to call it, real Zouk, traditional. Is present in almost everything regarding this style since the very basic steps. Like the basic step, the lateral, the bonus, everything we do, we are gonna use the suspension and the landing.
This is it. Like, I think it's one of the things that bring this flowy feeling in Brazilian Zouk when we see the dancers dancing. It's all connected to the suspensions and landings, as well as this is connected to our breathing, that's connected to a lot of other things that we're going to mention here. But yeah, it's like one of the main things you see is this kind of breathing movements, and these all comes from this suspension and landings.
Yeah, instead of having a very flat look, we kind of have this like wavy, flowy feeling and look to it, and it comes mainly from the suspensions and landings. And it's kind of a little combo that we have with the suspensions and landings, the pre-movement, the breathing, everything is connected. They go through each other, and they are connected. They are like a little combo that help us a lot to have a fluid dance, to have a good connection with the partner. It assists a lot in leading and following as well. And as we are talking about it, as everything in our methodology and in Brazilian Zouk, most of the time, but in our methodology always,
Yeah.
everything has a function, right? It has a purpose to be. So the function of the suspensions and landings are the smoothness of the steps, the control of the body flights. So we have a timing on our legs, but the body flight has a slightly different timing, and we
Yeah.
can go deeper into that. Let us know if you would like to know more about that. Fred is kind of like a very good guy to explain this concept. And the grounding as well, which is something that is really important for Brazilian Zouk, real style especially, is the grounding. So the suspensions and landings help us a lot with that. And with smooth links and transitions as well. So things that would be introduced, would be linked, would have the links of movements right in the momentum of the suspension, for example. This makes much smoother this transition between steps and figures and patterns. And for example, to start turns, counterbalances, all the pivots. So the suspensions are going to help a lot with that.
Yeah, I think we have three elements there make this combo like essential thing to have in the Brazilian Zouk dance, which is the suspension and landing. That it's straight connected to the breathing, like as you inhale and exhale, and it all defines the pre-movements. Because all the pre-movements, they are gonna be related to the way you make the suspension and your landing, and of course the way you're breathing. And that goes for the leading and following communication, as Andressa was mentioning, like for a simple turn, for example, because of the body behavior of the leader, the way he makes that pre-movement, the follower can know exactly the timing when she should go and when is the time to follow, when is the time to push the floor, because you can sense the other person's like landing and preparing the push on the floor to then move the body.
So this is likely change of levels that the suspension and the landings helps with, makes happen, is gonna help a lot, assist a lot in the leading and following as well, because this little change of level, which is subtle, but it's very like when we are well connected, we can feel really well, will help you not to need to use your frame unnecessarily. So if you have a good connection frame-wise and the rest of the body, these little changes in level with the suspensions and the landings are gonna make sure that you guys are understanding each other, the beginning and endings of patterns and things like this, without unnecessarily use of frame alone. So it also makes a much smoother leading as well from the leader side.
Yeah, we always tend to try at least to give or like to teach or to develop a way that we can lead way more with the body than with the arms. Okay, the arms, they are tools to be used. We should, of course, use the arms and forearms and the frame itself to direct the follower, like in the case of the leader. So I can direct the follower with the forearm, with the arm, with the frame, but I can try to use it much more as a support tool of what my body is leading than to use it as a main source of leading, which can create a lot of rough leadings, heavy leading, like a lot of pushes and drags, and all these things that make the dance more uncomfortable. So this control of suspension, landing, pushing the floor, the right momentum, defining really well the pre-movements, this all is going to create a much more comfortable dance because you don't rely on the arms to push or to pull or to do something that you want. You can use your entire body to communicate.
So what is a suspension, guys? Suspensions are those moments where the follow, I'm going to talk about the follow's perspective. Fred is going to come in with the leader's perspective a little bit after, okay? So the suspension is when the follow has, that moment when the follow has both heels out of the floor for a pivot or a turn or a transition. So we have a suspension during our lateral. We have a suspension during huge variations of patinhas. We have a moment of suspension that can happen in the basic step, during the basic step itself, right? So all those moments that we have these transitions and we have both heels out of the floor, or we have a growing out of our body intention as well, we call those moments the suspensions. So, and of course, the landing is what comes usually like right after that. You pass through a suspension and then you control your way down and land. Depending on what you're doing, you're gonna land with your weight in both legs, mostly in the leg in front, rarely in the leg that is in the back, very rarely. But that's what happens. So that's the process, right? So for example, when we are doing a lateral, we are ready to push the floor with the supporting leg, arrive with the other leg, pass through a suspension during our pivot, and then land in the leg that is in front with most of the way, around 70% of the way, to push again and go into another lateral, into another suspension. I hope that's clear. So those are suspensions, right? When you do a simple turn, you have a moment where you pass through a suspension. When you do most of the variations of the patinhas, there's a moment that you pass through a suspension. There are patinhas where we don't do suspension. This is another topic.
Yeah.
But most of them we do go through as a little suspension. So, and then the landings are very important as well, as much as the suspensions, because it's the moment that we reestablish our connection with the floor. We get ready to be able to move again and keep moving. So it's what makes us be grounded, this landing, right? So then first we go up and then we ground a little bit. So that's what we call the suspensions and the landings for Brazilian Zouk. We are going to find variations within this, right? But mainly, that's what it's about. Okay, so for the leaders, it changes a little bit.
Yeah, I think I would even add for the follower that this suspension and landing technique, it's something crucial. It's kind of the key for a follower to be stable and well balanced. Because like if you take the bonus, for example, the bonus, like when we start the bonus, we start 1, 2, and 3. At 4N is when you are doing the patin. This is the moment when you are up and then landing on 4. You know, landing on end. So you go up 4, end, and then you're gonna push to go 5. That movement you're gonna find in the simple turn, in the bonus, in the lateral, and the control of that moment. It's gonna be the key to make all these movements good.
Yeah, and it also helps with, we talked about the previous live. If you didn't see, you can watch it right after this one if you have time, or any moment that you guys are free to watch. We talked about styling, when to start teaching styling, if there's a point where it's too much, and what are our views on that. And we talked a lot about refining movement rather than adding things to the movement, right? So this is something that will help with that as well, because your movement as a follow is going to look much lighter, right? And much more controlled. So the way you step is going to be much more controlled. It's going to look better. And we're not going to have, because it's very important to be grounded. It's very important to be stable. But if you're just ground all the time, we may look that we are a little bit stuck. There's some stuck energy there. There is like a little bit too heavy on the floor. So the suspension helps a lot with that as well, with this elegance, let's say, in the movement too, right?
Yeah. For the leaders, things change a little bit, because the followers, they tend to use more the suspension and remain suspended. But the leaders, we we use the suspension, but we tend to remain more grounded because we are the support. We are the ones that are like manipulating the other body to perform the movements. Of course, we have our movements too, but the other body depends on our inputs. So it will happen. And the main thing is that the leader, it's not supposed to be on toes to do a suspension. As the followers, they may go many times. You know, like as I was mentioning, this moment of like 4N in a bonus or in a simple turn, which would be like 2N. You know, like you go 1 and then 2N. These moments, the follower, they go on toes, but the leaders, they should go on toes the following way. While one foot is completely on the floor, the other one can be with the heel a little bit out because it's the leg, it's the foot that is going to reach the destination where you're going to. Once it gets there, the other one can lift. And then you're all the times, at least with one foot, trying to be grounded the whole time. And then every chance you have both on the floor. So you use much more the landing feeling than the suspension feeling. But of course, you need to create suspension. And then how are you going to do this without being on toes all the time? We create much more a projection up. The same way we do with our breathing. When we breathe, we do like this, for example. We inhale, and then our bodies, they already kind of grow a little. They lift a little, you know, because of this inhaling feeling. The way we're going to do it is the same way. We're going to create this, but without going on toes. So for the leaders that have more difficulty to be grounded, one thing can be because, well, there are many things actually. It's the same way we talked in the first live one, like for difference of movement culture and non-movement culture. Maybe if you are from a non-movement culture, you have other things to relate, and then you tend to be airy, which is like when you are airy, you are in a suspension. And because you are in a suspension, you are vulnerable with your stability. Because if you have both, if you are your body, it's up, and you have both foot on toes, it means that you are vulnerable with your stability because the follower is also on toes. And then everyone is on toes here. And if she needs your assistance, you need to land to then assist because you cannot assist from a suspension. So that's why we should be down. And then we're going to bring it from the waist up. We're going to create this projection up. See, like all this we can do without taking our foot out of the floor and without going on toes. So if you see one situation, for example, let's picture a scenario here. We are making a traveling turn with a follower. To perform this traveling turn, the follower needs to be suspended. And she will remain suspended for a while. During the whole time you are keeping her in this multiple turn while traveling. So then you cannot be on toes as well because otherwise both of you are suspended. And then let's say that something happened, you know, like she gets some balance or there is a spot on the floor that is slippery and then she steps there. Something happens that her center of gravity moves abruptly or like super fast out of her pivot point, which makes her start a falling procedure. And then what is going to trigger in her body is that her brain is going to send commands to create contortions to make her get back to the stability. But then you, because you are suspended, you don't have time to land consciously and then try to assist her. This happens too fast. But if you are grounded and this happens with her, even being too fast, you are there already. You are where you're supposed to be if something goes wrong. And also you are where you're supposed to be if everything goes right. Because the ending of her traveling turn is going to be the landing. And you are grounded already, waiting for her. So that's why the leaders shouldn't be going on toes, which is pretty common if you start observing the dance floor.
Yeah.
So many leaders, they stay on toes too many times for too many movements.
So it's very nice if we really start to be really in control of these two aspects, the suspension and the landings, because then we can really explore like movements that require a lot of air and movements that require a lot of earth. So if we have the control of the moment where you suspend and you have a good control of your landing and to use your landing for your next suspension, we're going to be able to play a lot with these elements as well. The elements in Brazilian Zouk, the elements of nature in Brazilian Zouk is something that we use a lot in our methodology as well, because we think that it paint a picture in people's mind, and it's easier for them to understand what is that is really present in that movement or in that concept of Brazilian Zouk. So this also is something that we can go deeper if you guys would like to. Let us know in the comment, guys, if you guys have any questions about what we are talking about, or if you have any suggestions as well. If you wanted to go deeper in something that we pass quickly here, because we read the comments, we're going to reply to you guys, and we can also answer your questions maybe in the next video.
Yeah, if you have any question about what we're talking about, you can put it in the comments now. And also, guys, make sure that if you are just you just dropped here in this live, you are seeing this for the first time, in the description below of this video we have our group on Facebook, where we also post some materials there about teaching methodology, and we also have our group on Telegram where we put additional audios because it's easier. We just get the phone and make the audio and send it there. So all these links, also our podcast, if you want to listen to it, you cannot watch it, but maybe you're doing something else, it would be fine to listen.
To drive, to wash dishes.
You can look for it as ZOUKAHOLIC. So it's on Spotify and all the other major platforms of podcast, but the link is also in the description. Okay.
So guys, let me just give you guys another example as well in which the suspensions and landings assist a lot. Let's say that you take your follow to a simple turn, and after this simple turn you want to engage in a counterbalance, let's say when you are receiving a follow. If your follow is already passing through a suspension, in the moment that she's coming back to you during the simple turn and then coming back to you, you can get her already from this suspension and engage in the counterbalance, because to go for an effective counterbalance, she needs to have the heel out of the floor, right?
Suspension.
So she needs to be a little bit suspended. Doesn't matter which level she's gonna bend her knee, if she's gonna go to a little lower counterbalance or she's gonna keep it higher, the heel has to be out of the floor, right? So imagine that your follow doesn't use suspensions. She does a very flat step and pivot during the simple turn to go back to you. What you're gonna do, you're gonna have to add another lead to be able to lift her up and then engage into the counterbalance that you wanna go to. So this is how also the suspension and the landings help you not to have to use one more leading, one more effort. You can just enjoy the momentum and then keep it and then engage where you want to go, right? So we have thousands of other examples where this also happens, right? When you turn her to you, when she's coming through a suspension, you can just block her and then finally let her land with a body wave, for example, and really play with this, right?
Yeah, the whole thing about pre-movement is that when we are, for example, let's say that I have a follower, I'm gonna make a simple turn. See, we are facing each other, so I start the simple turn. The follower is going into a suspension, and then I block her. Now she has her back to me. So this was like 1, 2, then I block. So she now has her back to me. I hold her at the suspension, and now because we are in the suspension, maybe I can now use an isolation down, and then bring her up again. So then we land one more time to leave. But you see that the pre-movement in this situation is built in, because I could use the suspension that was happening because of the simple turn and get into a body movement. But if it doesn't happen, if she turns flat down without any suspension, I will need to block her. And now I need to create a suspension to then go down and then bring her up again. So then we leave. That's the problem, because I had to create a leading to bring her into a suspension to perform the movement I planned, when I could make it all smoothly blended and then go through, which is the whole idea of Brazilian Zouk, right? That we flow through the movements.
Yeah.
We are not like restarting the movement. So every time we conclude something, we need to restart. And this idea of restarting thing, it breaks the flow. You know, so the whole thing about the pre-movement is that the control of the suspension and the landing, many times the pre-movement is going to be built in. And then because you are not using the suspension and the landing, you need to create another pre-movement. So then you go to the next movement. It creates a lot of transitions. My Siri all the time, I don't know, I say something, it comes. So yeah, it creates a lot of transitions that show, you know. The idea is that you're gonna come from a movement and then you make a transition that when you realize you are in the other one. We don't see the transition tools, you know, used. But this other way, we may see them because you're all the time restarting.
So, about the methodology, sometimes when we teach this and we introduce the suspension and landings to students that come to us, either because they are starting to teach themselves or because they want to, you know, improve their technique, polish their technique, and we introduce the suspension and landings as a concept that they didn't apply before. They usually ask if we start teaching this from the beginning, like from the top. And yes, we do. And we advise to do so, of course, once you have the concept, like you understand it and you use it in your dance as well. We really advise you to teach from the beginning with the suspension and landing because habits are hard to break. Mm-hmm. And once your body finds a comfortable way, a way that requires little effort to do something and get away with it, your body's gonna tend to stick to it.
It's gonna become the comfortable
zone.
So
afterwards, if we teach a very flat lateral, as a lot of people do, just like step, 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 step all the time, you know, it's gonna be really hard to introduce the suspension and landings later. Not impossible, but harder because it's working. If you want to do just that, just the lateral, it's going to work like that. But it will require more effort later on to combine movements, you know, to do things in a flowy way, to do things in a smooth way, as we've been talking about. Or we're going to have to find ways to hack it. Yeah. And, you know, like as Freddy was saying, create extra leads or extra tools to be able to reach the same result. So we prefer to take a little longer since the beginning. So since the first lateral that I teach my students, I already teach with the little push, the suspension, the transition upwards, and the landing down from the scratch, right? From zero. So that's how they learn their first lateral, their first simple turn, their first viradinha. I already teach that from the beginning. So I would highly advise you guys to introduce the concept from the beginning. They are gonna get it, of course, little by little. Not everybody needs to have a very high suspension. We always respect the limits of the students. We have students that go in a pretty high suspension. I myself go in a pretty high suspension. We have students that just take the heel out of the floor enough for the transition to happen smoothly. And that's okay. That's not a problem. It doesn't need to be like super high. It just needs to happen.
Yeah, especially because if you go super high and you are not well trained or you don't have good control of the body, you go super high and then you fall, you don't land.
Yes,
you just fall.
Exactly.
So better not to go so high.
But with the training, it's possible also to get there if it's your wish.
Yeah,
you know, if you want to, it's possible to get there. But it really makes a difference in our point of view to apply this technique from the start and to apply this technique because we know that there's some people end up not even applying that.
Yeah, reminding that this is our point of view. This is our experience. That's the way we find having the best results. Because usually we always in the end of a season, because we have our courses, seasonal courses, so we keep a group for a longer period, and then we can see everything, we can try new things, and every time we have issues in a certain things, we try to fix those issues there in the fundamentals. So to try to avoid having them later on. So if it cannot be addressed in the fundamentals in the next level, and then we try to solve it as soon as possible, because the less the students think about foundations and the concepts, how they work, more they can focus on the movement or on the other things that they are doing. Otherwise, they dance thinking too much.
Yeah. 95% of the issues that people bring to us or that we meet in class, even in advanced level master classes, can be solved with polishing the foundation and the basic technique. The concepts were there and in the beginning, right? So it's like the lack of that little concept that should be there from the start is what causes big problems in the beginning.
Which is funny because
big problems later on. Sorry.
Yeah, which is a funny thing because the more advanced we go in this dance, more we rewind to the foundation, right? Of course, that we rewind to the foundation, but it's not going to be the foundation. Not going to be addressed as a beginner, but it's going to be deeper into the foundation, so we understand better the more advanced.
So, Julia, I'm going to get to your question very soon, okay? Because it's going to complement perfectly what I'm going to talk about next.
Let me just read her question, like in case someone is not checking the chat. So she asked like this, maybe you can give advice how to train that solo.
Very good. So I'm going to give some advice on how to train that solo very soon. But what happens, what I wanted to talk about as well, is that some people try to avoid using the suspension and landings because they are afraid of that hiccup look and feeling, right? That we're like going up and down all the time. And this that's why we don't really call it up and down because we also don't want this look and this feeling.
It's going to be bouncing look.
Yeah, this bouncing look, that's not the goal of the suspensions and landings. So how do I avoid that? What I have to do is that I have to have a very gradual push up for the suspension. I have to have a very controlled transition and a gradual and controlled landing as well. So things have to be gradual. So the push is, the progression of the push is more important than the intention to go high, the intention to go up. It should not be your goal. So what you don't think about going up, you think about pushing the floor and gradually changing a little bit your level. When you return, is the same progression down. So the knee work and the ankle work is going to be crucial for that. We have to have control of the calf muscles, of the tendons as well. So we do a little bit of exercise, warm up very well to have this control. And controlling this gradually, progressively, exactly, we avoid the hiccup look, and the bouncy look. And the transitions and landings are going to meet their purpose, their function, but we are not going to look that we are actually changing levels. It doesn't even look like we don't see the change of level evident in the dance. We just see something that it's
a flotation.
Yeah, it looks like they're floating. It looks like they are stepping on clouds.
Like breathing. It's the same as we breathe. We don't breathe like. It's not like accentuated like that. So it's so smooth that you don't even notice that the person is like moving the body while breathing. But the person is breathing the whole time when you're having a conversation. But you don't even notice that. It's not something that draws attention, because it goes like progressively.
Yes.
It's very natural.
So the key is to have a good relationship with the floor and work gradually towards your suspension and then gradually towards your landing. This is something that you can all, already getting into Julia's question, this is something that you can all practice by yourself, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit for the follows, and then Freddy can add up something for the leaders. So the lateral, I think, is the best and the lateral and the simple turn, because it's more or less the same step and pivot, are the best movements for you to work on. You can have something to support yourself on. First, warm up with a few relevés, trying to control as much as you can. You're going up and downs, and also go up, bend your knees, go down. So always working these joints that are gonna have a crucial point, and in this technique, and then also work when you are going finally to actually do the movement. You can still do with the support of a chair, a bar, or something. And afterwards, when you are doing by yourself, making sure that you are doing progressively your way up and progressive your way down. Do it really, really slow down, and then when you think you're doing slower, do a little bit slower, because speed hides need. This is something that we always say. If you do something fast, you may think that you're doing it right, but actually it's just like the gravity helping you to do it.
It's just like you are on the way anyway.
So it's like inertia helps you go wherever you're going. So these are very simple exercises that you guys can see. I can drop a quick video on the Telegram channel as well with some exercises. So if you guys are not on our Telegram channel yet, you can go there, just download Telegram and find us with Zouk Methodology by FNA.
The link is in the description below of this video.
So I can drop a little video there with some little exercises for us to practice this solo. And I think it's really nice and really important to practice this solo, because the suspension is a moment that we are up, but we cannot rely on our partner. So it's very important that we do train and do exercise this control. So exercising the tendons and joints and muscles that you're gonna use with simple relevés, so like going up on your toes and down very slowly after a good warm up, is already something that we can do to create the strength that we need for that movement to happen in the muscles and the tendons. And then just get your simple turn, just get your lateral, and try during the pivot to be up in a suspension, right? And then when you land, try to land really gradually, using the help of your inner thigh muscles. Your inner thigh muscles are crucial for your landing. Your intention is always to bring them together, not your knees, but right up in your inner thigh muscles, right? So those are a few tips for you guys to practice by yourself, and I'm gonna do my best for during this week to drop the video with a little bit of more instructions for the exercises.
So it's going to be on Telegram, and as one more time, it's the link to join the group. It's in the description. You just click there and then you join like straight away, okay? For the leaders, guys, one thing that may help is that because a lot of leaders already tend to be airy or to go too high, which is not recommended because we are because of all those reasons I mentioned before. One thing that you can try the following. Every time you want to make this projection up, that you kind of grow up but without going out of the floor, think about expanding yourself, you see, like enlarging the body. So you can use, for example, when you are basic step and then you bring the follower to a prep lunge, and then go into a simple turn. You can do it by yourself, all this procedure, or bring it, but every time you do this, even when you put your arm forward like this to bring her, make sure you don't lean forward with your body, and then you are always grounded. So you're gonna push the floor with one foot, and then the moment you have to pass through the suspension to bring her to a preparation, that's the moment you're gonna pay attention not to be with both feet out of the on toes or out of the floor. So avoid being with the foot on toes. Okay, so you're gonna put one out when it's reaching the floor with your toe, and then you reach with the heel. The other one is getting out. So it's always like this. Both are flat on the floor. One is leaving, projecting. Then as this one lands, the other one starts to go. So you are always based. You are never with both on toes. you can try this little routine, but every time you land, you try to expand yourself. So you're really opening yourself. The more you open yourself, more you grow in all sides, in all areas, but without lifting from the floor. Okay. If you just participated from the Zouk Lounge these past weekends, my class there was only for leaders. You can rewatch, and then I talked a little bit about these things. It wasn't about this, but everything I did there works really good for this. And if you are one of our members in our online training subscription, lucky you, the next video is coming right up, like as soon as it turns January, and it's going to be about this. It's going to be a solo for leadership, and this is going to be addressed exactly this kind of exercise that I told about now, with posture, keeping good posture, and then also making sure you don't go on toes with both feet.
Yeah, everything that we cover here, guys, we go very deep into detail in our membership subscription as well, with classes, with all those concepts, exercises, and everything. So if you are one of those subscribers, you probably have this content there for you to check it out and try to connect everything that we are talking about here today with all the information that you can find there as well. So guys, we're gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you all for being here with us. If you missed the previous 2 live videos, we talked in the first ones about teaching in a movement culture and in a non-movement culture, the differences, what you can do to bridge this gap. And also, the last week we talked about styling, when to start teaching, when to start learning, when is it too much?
Should I do it? Should I not?
So if you want to also know our views on that and how we introduce styling into our methodology, go and check it out, the previous live. We are going to be back next Monday, and we wish you all a very, very happy new year despite everything. I hope you guys remain safe and healthy. And thank you for 2020, guys.
Yeah, and guys, of course, to help us all with this message, if you really found useful the information we are giving here, you think someone else would benefit from what we are doing, so please share the video with your friends. Hit the like button here so you help the video to go for more people. And if you are not a subscriber of our channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the dance content we are going to be putting here often. And you're always with us. We have this more closer contact. And yes, guys, hope you have an amazing 2021. There is hope. Everything is going to change. Keep the faith. And we are all thankful and grateful because we are still healthy and we survived 2020 good and healthy, and we are here. And this is it, guys. So stay safe, take care, and see you in the next live.
See you
next Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.